Welcome to the fourth session of our interpretation of the Hebrew Bible, or what we call Old Covenant. I want to talk about in this session the tools that you will use. If you are not trained in the languages to be able to do what we would call first order interpretive process, or to deal with the language and the biblical writ as it was copied and transmitted, you would be doing what is called second order, or you would be relegated to looking at commentaries. You would be relegated to utilizing works by diverse scholars to interpret or to convey your message or to make your argument, to become this scholar that proclaims, "Thus says the Lord." And so one of the things that I want to do in this session is to familiarize you with some of the tools that I think will inform you in your interpretive process. One of the works that I think is foundational is Norman Gottwald's work, Socio-Literary Approach to the Old Testament. As you can begin to understand socio, looking at society, but also looking at the literary constructs, what we would call syntax, word analogies, taking a look at them within their social context during that time, and then to begin to try to convey it in our time. Literary meaning, again, the word analogies, and the syntax meaning the sentence structures, taking a look at which words were used as well as which words were not used, or to look at how they were constructed together to convey an idea or an argument. And so Norman Gottwald's work helps you to really step into those texts and look again behind them, to start saying, well, wait a minute, how are they being constructed? When are they being constructed? What sociologically is occurring? What's in society that's occurring? And it gives you a different framework, or what we would call a worldview, an understanding in which to build your arguments. Another work, or works, is anything written by Dr. Walter Brueggemann. Dr. Walter Brueggemann is an extraordinary scholar who uses imagination, but uses socio-historical, socio-literary to construct this world of imagination, to begin to say, well, not only what is going on, but what does this mean? And to ask questions, to begin to say, really, what are they arguing? What's happening in here? And to look at, again, its applicability. There are works such as Fire in My Bone, the work of Jeremiah, or Interpretation, a Bible commentary for teaching and preaching, which is a work on the Genesis story, prophetic imagination. There's just so many works by Dr. Walter Brueggemann that I think will really stimulate your thought process. Because remember, one of the things that doing this kind of interpretive process is to stimulate individuals. It is asking the questions, as Dr. Samuel DeWitt Proctor would argue, that the congregants, are not really at a point to where they feel comfortable in their faith to ask. You, being one with them, from them, called to them, ask the questions that they dare not ask. And so a part of this writing and a part of this reading are questions that individuals are asking because they are adult in their faith. My professor, Dr. Renita J. Weems, who I would say is probably one of the most gifted scholars and writers, has written works such as Battered Love, Just a Sister Away, I Ask for Intimacy, What Matters Most, to name a few. And she begins to talk about becoming a voice for the voiceless, those inside of the text who the writer did not pen words that would describe their human and divine struggle, or their human and their divine encounter. And Dr. Weems would argue, you must give voice to the voiceless in the text, such as you must give voice to Lot's wife and Lot's daughters, to ask questions of the text. And what does that mean, particularly if you're talking about enhancing the value that we ascribe to the voiceless, the marginalized, and the powerless. So when you look at these works, we begin to start looking at Dr. Weems utilize her exegetical, hermeneutical process to give voice to women who have been so marginalized. One of the questions that I would ask as I start listening to some of these texts is, how have we participated in the abuse and the oppression and the marginalization of women as a Christian community of faith? How is it that Christ elevates in many aspects, but how is it that the Hebrew Bible marginalizes in many aspects? And how is it the reversal at times? And is this the writer? Is this the individual? Is that their interpretation of this? And how then do we reinterpret it? As Dr. Weems would say, let's take a look at the encounters and the events, and then to begin to look at, well, wait a minute, why is it that Lot is sitting at the gate? And what does it mean to sit at the gate? And what about his wife, who is voiceless and does not talk to anybody and is considered an outsider? How would she have treated her daughters? How would she have interacted? What does it mean that she is picked up and pulled away from her community and placed in this obscure place where there's no one who is engaging? So when she looks back, is she looking back because maybe she does not see any future in where she's going? God is not talking to her. Or, as one writer says, if we look at the text, the writer says there are two daughters who have these men that they possibly might be engaged to, or they possibly have been married to, but they know not. So, as one writer says, is there two daughters, or are there four daughters? And does she look back to look at the two that she left? Is that, what are all of these dynamics that might have occurred? Remember, you're using not only imagination, but you're interpreting. Some folks are I know, going to argue, well, you're adding something to the text. No, we're interpreting the text because there's information from different commentaries and different scholars who've looked at this in its original language, in its original culture. And so we're asking questions of the text to make sure that we are being faithful to the text. Also, there is Michael Coogan's work, Introduction to the Old Testament. You need to look at the Introduction to the Old Testament by Coogan. Also, Dr. Brueggemann has an introduction to the Old Testament. You need to look at it so that you can get information of the world of the biblical writ. By introduction, we begin to look at, well, what are the political, social implications? What are the wordings, the analogies, the perceptions? What is the essence of the book? How many books are there, such as you talk about Isaiah? Are you talking about Isaiah of Jerusalem or Deutero-Isaiah, or as some scholars would argue, Trito-Isaiah? So when you start looking at this, what are we arguing? You say, well, that's really no difference. Yes, it is. It talks about where they are. Isaiah of Jerusalem is before they go into exile. Deutero is while they're in exile, or as they are going to exile. And then this post-exilic, as they are preparing to come out of exile, or are leaving and going back. What then is God saying at these different points in these different times? One of my favorite works, and is a new work, is Douglas Knight's work, Law, Power, and Justice in Ancient Israel. In that writing, he begins to look at law, whether you're talking about cultural laws or biblical laws. He's looking at power as to who's writing it, who benefits from that. And what do we talk about when we talk about justice, order, this truth, the way society is structured? He begins to look at this as we begin to look behind the text to ask, what does this mean? What is the writer trying to say? How does it impact different people at different stages? And if we can understand that, then we can begin to reinterpret it for our 21st century. Sometimes challenging it, sometimes supporting it, sometimes questioning it, sometimes saying, is this who God really says God is in the midst of all of this?